Most of what people do is what we're doing right now. Most of what people do is sit down.
But is that because they don't feel like running around? Because some people, like people who exercise, generally you have to put in a little bit of effort to make yourself go exercise. But a lot of people who are overweight and sick don't have enough energy to do that.
I don't know about that. Some of them maybe, but I think some of them just don't have discipline. There's an issue with that as well. There's also an issue with momentum. You're not used to doing it. It's not a part of your life. It's not something that you're accustomed to pushing yourself. There's been many days where I didn't want to work out. I just didn't feel like I had the energy, and I just forced myself. And I think there's very few people out there that know how to force themselves. And that's a learned.
Yeah.
That's a learned skill. It's
Yeah.
that kind of discipline and focus. You have to have like real rigid requirements of yourself where you don't allow yourself to back out of things and you don't allow yourself to slack off. And I don't think people put those kind of requirements on themselves as if it's it is a daily principle of life, like what you must get done. You know, you must brush your teeth, you must exercise for 45 minutes. And if you did that, I think you'd be healthier and happier, and your body would perform more smoothly. And if you require your body to do things like that, I think it rises to the occasion. There are very few people that have that kind of discipline. So because of that, they come up with excuses. And excuses are a giant part of the problem. It's not simply a physical health issue. There's also mental aspects of it, and discipline's a big one. I just know way too many people who are weak mentally. And I can't just chalk it off to only, you know, their physical, the way they physically feel, because I felt like shit 100 times, and then I worked out, and then I felt way better.
Yeah,
it's just a fact of life.
So I agree with what Rogan's saying here, where people feel that every time people that are disciplined, that do go to the gym or work out or are doing something positive, are always motivated to do it or are always excited. And I've said this many times that even people that are in the industry in terms of fitness, and specifically I'll talk about myself, that the majority of the time you're not super excited to go work out or do something difficult, because the reality is that you've conditioned yourself enough to know that you should be doing this, and that's the difference between somebody that doesn't. So most of the time I don't feel super excited to work out or do jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, that kind of something that doesn't have that immediate gratification that you get, and it's delayed to get that, so it's hard to convince yourself. Let's say 70% of the time I don't feel like it. I would say 100% of the time, once I've done that, if I've worked out, 100% of the time I'll always feel great after doing that. And that's the difference between understanding the delayed gratification that comes versus having it on the spot, that you want a reward when you're doing something. And usually bad habits are rewarded on the spot and good habits are rewarded later on. And I think James Clear said that in Atomic Habits. And people need to understand that these are the things that make the difference, kind of understanding and conditioning yourself to think that way, that I'm going to do something now, I will get the rewards later on, versus I want to have that piece of cake or smoke or whatever it is and get that immediate gratification, where that delayed gratification happens later on with a good habit.
Life, that's real. You know, you just gotta, and people don't know how to do that. And it's not, and if you're used to doing this, get in your car, sit down, drive to the office, sit down, go to the lunch, sit down. You know, go to the board meeting, sit down. Get in your car on the way home, sit down. Get home in front of the TV, sit down. Then go to the gym, fuck off. They don't have any energy. You know, their body's not, their body's like, I don't have it in me to do this. And I don't believe that. I think it's a lot of it is the mindset.
So I partly agree with that, but because...
And that kind of ties into the last point, where people make the decisions that they do. It's not because there's something stopping them in the majority of the cases. And there are some cases where you'll watch in this video where obviously she has a condition where it doesn't allow her to. But having said that, most of the people make the decision that they don't want to because it's too hard. And I get that. And that goes back to the gratification that is delayed when it comes to working out or moving. And Joe Rogan says this a lot in terms of, he refers to this as exercise. I want to change that and use maybe movement in general is so much more important. That yes, resistance training, all that is critical, but just moving for a lot of people will add so much value to their lives that people underestimate going for a walk daily for half an hour, how much it's going to add. And he's going to talk about
And I
this
know
now.
I was a very sick individual.
You're in a different case. You have real, legitimate, diagnosed physical issues. This is a very different thing. I mean, you have a severe autoimmune disorder. I mean, listen, you get your hip replaced when you're fucking 17.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't hear that. This is a different. I'm talking about the average fat fuck who's just sitting around being lazy. That's really what it is. It's like, I'm sure a lot of it is diet, and a lot of that diet affects their physical health. But there's been many, many people that have just put their foot down and said, enough. I'm going to change my life. And they don't take any excuses, and they feel way, way better. Diet is most certainly a part of that, but there's also a discipline.
So this is something I'm exploring more, and if you read my last newsletter, I talk about this a bit more, and it's the science of change and how change has different layers that have to be addressed, which I'll get into at a later date on that. But the decisions that people make are usually the wrong decisions because they're not getting that gratification that they're looking for.
Aspect. And these things are not mutually exclusive. They exist together. They're all together. And they work symbiotically. The way your mindset affects the choices you make with your diet. And the mindset also affects the choices you make in terms of like whether or not you require yourself to exercise. And I think these are critical aspects that people like to gloss over, or they like to make excuses about. And they get very angry if you don't accept those excuses. And that's a sign that they're trying to enforce this standard and this idea and push it on you and give themselves an excuse. And it's one of the reasons.
So this is 100% true. I mean, maybe Joe's a bit blunt with how he addresses things, but that's why I like him. He says it as it is. And the reality that people can come up with millions and millions of excuses why they don't want to do something. And it's very easy to trick the mind into thinking that I'm tired today, I had a long day, I was stressful, whatever it is. There's always excuses that can be thrown at not doing something. And this is a difficult part of conditioning the mind to understand that if you break through that barrier, you'll start to understand that it's a lot more productive, that you can start to do things that aren't pleasant, and you'll get the rewards later on down the road.
Why they get angry. It's one thing if someone has a legit physical issue like you do, but there's a lot of people who do not. They just have poor diet choices, they have a sedentary lifestyle, and they have the momentum of this sedentary lifestyle that's holding them back. They're accustomed to being lazy.
Okay. I kind of agree. I just, from like my perspective, I've seen my dad, and he was very like, you can see from the videos from 2014 before he started going low carb and everything, he was carrying about 50 extra pounds.
Right.
And he didn't exercise. And he didn't have enough energy to exercise.
That's not
but
true.
But it didn't look
that's
like
not true.
that.
That's not true. He just didn't do it.
No, I don't believe that.
But when you say he didn't have enough energy to exercise, did he walk around?
Well, yeah,
Did
but
he
you can
walk to
drag yourself through things.
And you can drag yourself through an exercise routine. You can. Oh, you most certainly can. You most certainly can. You don't have to.
So this is such an important point, that you don't have the energy or whatever, unless you're a person that's disabled. And even in that case, a lot of people, and I'll use my dad and my mom as an example, being a stroke victim, he forced himself to move. Okay, he had the support around him, but he still forced himself. And that's the difference between making the decision that you want to get better or move and not. He could have made that decision that I want to stay sitting in the bed and become immobile and have to rely on people around him. But he made the decision that he wants to get better, as difficult as it was. And the same thing for my mom coming out of the hospital. She lost a lot of muscle mass, so even walking upstairs was virtually impossible. But like he said, if you can walk a couple of steps, then that's the first step. And building on that, the next day you do 10 steps and then 20 steps, eventually it'll start to build up and you start to add more volume into what you're doing, and then you start to exercise. It doesn't have to be a black and white decision of, if I'm not going to go all out on my workouts, I'm not going to do it. No, it can be very small steps, and people that have come back from injuries will understand this, that just doing small things adds a lot of value to your life, and it has to be a gradual increase and getting better at that.
Do a lot. You just have to do something. You walk up hills. You jump a little rope. You take a little tiny kettlebell, you do a couple cleans and presses, you do a few push-ups, you do a few sit-ups, you get your blood pumping, you're moving, you're alive, you're exercising. To say you don't have enough extra energy to exercise, that's crazy. Can you walk to the refrigerator? Then you can exercise. I'm not saying that you have to run marathons. You can exercise, and everyone should fucking exercise.
I agree. Everyone should exercise.
But don't ever say, these people are so crazy. They want you to believe, I don't have the energy to exercise.
See, I want to differentiate. There's some people that don't care. They want to be unhealthy, and that's their choice at the end of the day. But the problem I have with people that complain about having back problems and knee problems and having low energy and not sleeping properly and mood swings and all these things, and a lot of these ailments can be addressed with movement or exercise specifically, and they complain about it, but they're not willing to put in the work or the effort to get better at it. And this is my issue. People that don't care about their health, they don't care about getting better, that's fine, that's your choice. And whatever life brings you, then you'll have to deal with it, and whatever consequences are there. But the people that are genuinely complaining and what they want to get better, they need to understand that it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to get there, and it could be baby steps for you to reach those goals.
God damn it, everyone does. If you're alive, you can exercise.
I believe that. I've been there. I know I'm a different case, but I've seen my dad there. And then here's the thing. Once he fixed up his diet, once he went to this carnivore diet, he's exercising now.
Sure, he's got less weight on his body. He feels better.
And he has energy.
That's wonderful. He could have exercised then, too. He would have felt shittier, for sure. Wouldn't have felt as good as he's feeling now. But to give people this excuse, I don't have the energy to exercise, that is crazy to say. Can you walk to the fucking refrigerator? Yes. Well, you can exercise. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just walk around the block. There's 80-year-old ladies who take yoga with me. They're fucking really old, and they're in there. They're going after it. They could easily say, I don't have the energy to do that. But they don't. It's a mental attitude. They make a decision.
I agree. Like, there's a lot of it's discipline. You're going to get people who just won't exercise.
You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to go to a CrossFit class and try to do the workout of the day. You don't have to go nuts and do clean and presses with 150 pounds. You don't have to do that, but you have to do something. Just get your blood moving. Your body has requirements. It wants to move. It really does. And when it does, you feel better. But people like to give themselves this excuse. I do not have the energy to do this. Whatever. If you decide that, that's true. But if you watch a motivational video, there's 100 of them on YouTube, thousands.
Yeah, I'm going to add to this. It's not only the energy, it's a lot of excuses that I get as well from people, is that I don't have the time and I have a busy this and a busy that. The reality is there's time there. There's 24 hours in a day, and how you choose to use those hours is up to you, and that's what's a priority to you. So if you've made the decision that kind of getting healthy or fit isn't a priority, then that's a different story. But to say there's no time, there's always time, because you have 24 hours in a day, as ironic as that sounds, and you can always carve out half an hour of that day to do something, whether it's giving up kind of social media stuff, or it's giving up some of your sleep, or if it's giving up some of your social time. There's always a way that you can get time in there, and the reality is, if you want to find a solution, you'll find it. If you don't want to, you'll come up with a million excuses with that. The gym is too far, it's too expensive, I don't have time, I don't have energy, and so on and so forth.
Even go watch one, you'll get fired up. You're like, fuck it, I'm gonna jump some rope. You jump some rope, you do something, just do some push-ups, do something, do some body weight squats, you'll feel better. But it's also like learning that and having that as a part of your daily life. It has to be, again, I'm not talking about someone like you who's in the throes of this autoimmune disorder where you're getting your hip replaced at 17. I'm not talking about someone with like serious degenerative illness. I'm talking about just a regular person who's overweight. You can do it. There's a lady who's like 450 pounds that takes yoga with me. She's enormous. She's in there. She's probably really embarrassing. Very hard to do.
Yeah.
And she's in there. Anyone could do it. We can do it. And again, I'm not saying do what Michael Phelps does. I'm just saying just do something. Got to do something. We have fucked up lifestyles. The lifestyles that people have are just, the human body is not designed to sit down all day, and it's certainly not designed to be stuck in traffic and be in an office and just be, fluorescent lights and just sitting there in front of a fucking computer monitor watching your soul get sucked through the LCD screen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I think we got to be really careful with just the way we describe things. It's like say, I don't have the energy to do something. Like, fuck off. Stop.
100% fuck off. I agree with that sentiment, and the reality is that, and this is what I'm trying to get to in this video, is that you can overcomplicate things, you can come up with a million excuses why you can't do something, but if you genuinely want to get better and fix a lot of elements or problems in your life, it's very simple, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Just going out for a walk, it doesn't get more simple than that, and I've talked about that extensively in my previous videos. And the reality is that if you just implement these small changes, a lot of the problems that you face in your life can be reduced or eliminated in some cases. So until next week, enjoy yourself and stay active and enjoy your week.